This morning, the Spokane Police Department named the killer in a 1959 killing of a 9-year-old girl. With that murderer now being named, it becomes one of the state's longest solved cold cases.
Candy Rogers was found dead 16 days after going missing while selling campfire grill cookies near her home in northwest Spokane. KREM 2's Ian Smay was at the press conference today. He joins us live in the newsroom tonight to explain how the case shocked Spokane and how the community responded. Ian?
Mark, Whitney, this was a case that everyone in Spokane at the time was following. In fact, at one point, more than 1,000 community members took part in the search for 9-year-old Candy Rogers. Her body was found after 16 days of searching, but it would take more than 60 years for her family to get closure, as police named John Ray Hoff as her killer this morning. We should warn you, the following story contains graphic details that may be shocking to some viewers. Candy Rogers was described as small for her 4th grade class at Holmes Elementary School, standing at about 4 feet 4 inches tall. The 9-year-old had aspirations of becoming a full-fledged campfire girl. On March 6, 1959, she went out to sell campfire girl mints near her home on West Mission Avenue. She never returned home, causing a massive search effort the likes of which Spokane had never seen before.
What is remarkable, volunteer efforts sometimes are short-lived, but the dedication here is it's really staggering. On the final weekend, 1,200 people came to the command post to help with the search.
Many groups helped out with the search, including a helicopter from Fairchild Air Force Base. When conducting a search over the Spokane River, it hit high-tension power lines and crashed into the water, killing 3 of the 5 men on board. But the search wouldn't be in vain. As 16 days after she disappeared, Candy Rogers' body was found 7 miles from her home after a pair of hunters found her shoes. Her body was found behind pine needles and brush. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled by a strip of cloth taken from her own clothes. Now, the search for Candy's body turned into a search for her killer. A search that would take decades.
This is kind of the case that's been the giant logjam for cold cases in Spokane. It's been I keep saying it's the Mount Everest of our cold cases, the one that we could never seem to overcome, but at the same time, nobody ever forgot.
Of course, police were finally able to identify the killer this year. Police identified John Ray Hoff, who died by suicide in 1970, as her killer. We will have more on how police were able to solve the case of Candy Rogers' murder coming up in our shows at 5 and 6. We will also have a reaction from law enforcement, as well as from family members of both Rogers and Hoff. If you want more information on how police solved the cold case, text the word cold to 509-448-2000, and we will send that to your phone. Also, if you have any questions about the case or how it was solved, text your questions to that same number, and I will be back at 6:30 to answer some of those. You can also find the full Spokane Police Department press conference from this morning on our YouTube page. For now, in the newsroom, Ian Smay, KREM 2 News.
All right, Ian, thank you very much. In other big news today, a Wisconsin jury found Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty on all 5 felony charges that he was facing for the deaths of 2 men and wounding of another during a night of violent protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin back in August of 2020.
So jurors ultimately had to decide whether the case against the armed out-of-state teenager boiled down to self-defense or vigilantism. Michael George has the story tonight.
The jury found the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse.
Kyle Rittenhouse started to shake, cry, and then fell to the floor as the jury finished reading its verdict. Not guilty on all charges. The 18-year-old was acquitted of 5 felony charges in the shooting deaths of Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber, and for wounding a 3rd man, Gage Grosskreutz.
He has to get on with his life the best he can. I think eventually some anonymity will come back to it.
Outside the courthouse, there are about 50 protesters, and the moment the verdict was read, there were cheers from those in the crowd who support Kyle Rittenhouse. Even some passing cars were honking their horns. But among those here who believe Rittenhouse should be convicted, there was silence. Some told us this was not the outcome they wanted, but it is one they expected.
It shows that we can be gunned down in the street and there are no consequences.
What are your thoughts on the verdict?
I'm happy. I think he's not guilty.
Many continue to debate the verdict, passionately but peacefully.
If you had to fight for your life and defend yourself, absolutely. And I would defend you in that right.
You can defend me all you want. I'll never get out if I did the same thing he did.
The shootings took place during a night of protests over police violence against black people in the summer of 2020. Rittenhouse arrived at the protest with an AR-style semi-automatic rifle and told jurors he was there to help.
I didn't do anything wrong. I defended myself.
He said he killed 2 people. How do you admit it? How do you acknowledge it? And there are no consequences.
The jury had deliberated for about 3.5 days before acquitting the 18-year-old. Michael George, CBS News, Kenosha, Wisconsin.
We also have some breaking news for you now out of Davenport. A train derailment has closed State Route 28 in both directions. This is near Fitness Lane.
Several train cars have overturned, according to WashDOT. The engine is on the opposite side of the overturned train cars, so the remaining cars cannot be moved off the highway right now. A detour, by the way, is in place for the time being. All right, let's talk weather. A lot of us woke up to snow on the ground depending on where you live. Some others just saw rain.
Yeah, it was interesting how it ultimately ended up. Meteorologist Michelle Boss is in tonight. Michelle, how are things looking for the weekend? Any more snowflakes in the forecast?
Not really anything significant. I think we're going to be talking from snow and rain that we had yesterday more to kind of clouds and fog. So still looking a little bit gloomy, at least for part of the weekend. As we take a look at satellite and radar right now, you can see the area of snow and rain that moved through the area is now pushing out just a few light rain and snow showers in the far southeastern corner of Washington and across the southern panhandle, but some drier air across central Washington where they are seeing some clear skies this evening. Unfortunately, skies aren't expected to stay clear throughout the evening and overnight hours. Fog is starting to develop across parts of the inland northwest. Deer Park now down to 1.25 miles visibility, and down in Pullman some pretty thick and foggy conditions and temperatures right below freezing right now. So there could be some area slick roadways. You can see Moscow reporting 30 degrees. Not quite sure why Pullman's not showing up, but they're 31 degrees. 33 right now in Spokane. 34 in Coeur d'Alene, a little bit milder out in Moses Lake. They're in the lower 40s. Here's a look at the next 12 hours. Things are going to be relatively quiet. No precipitation outside of a little bit of drizzle, so we'll be watching for that for areas that are seeing that and have below freezing temperatures. Again, could find a few slick spots on area roadways, but otherwise cloudy and foggy for your Saturday. Partly sunny on Sunday. Temperatures slowly warming back up into the lower 40s by Monday.
All right, Michelle, thank you very much. New this afternoon, CDC Director Rochelle Walensky endorsed COVID-19 vaccine boosters for all adults.
So a CDC advisory group has also endorsed both Pfizer and Moderna's boosters for all adults. The committee's vote in favor of those boosters came just hours after the FDA also authorized the shots. This move now simplifies who is eligible for that third dose.
So if you are fully vaccinated with Pfizer or Moderna, you can get a booster 6 months after your second dose. Your second dose must have been in May if you want a booster shot this weekend. If you got the Johnson & Johnson single dose, you are eligible 2 months after your dose. But regardless of what vaccine you got, you need to be 18 years and older to get a booster.
Well, a famous Spokane dog has caught a lot of people's attention on social media. Coming up after the break, we're going to show you his sliding adventures. Don't go anywhere. We're back after the break.